So welcome back, healthy people, to another episode of On Call with Dr. Randy. I have Dr. Rooks here with me today to discuss healthy eating habits. In specific, we're going to be talking about healthy eating in relationship to high blood pressure and diabetes. How are you doing today, Dr. Rook?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here. I am so excited that so many people are doing podcasts and educating our community. So I'm really pleased to be here and to be part of this.
Thank you for joining me. You've done a lot of research in plant-based medicine, health, along with lifestyle behavior modification. What made you kind of get into that field?
Well, I think I got started because of personal health problems. Right? I was overweight and I had acne and I had a lot of problems when I was younger. And I read a lot about it before I went to medical school. Actually, I became very interested in changing my eating habits, and I realized that I had really terrible allergies. And once I eliminated the dairy from my diet, I noticed that the allergies cleared right up. And now I'm in Atlanta. I lived in New York, and this was a long time ago. I'm pretty old, but so in we only had Benadryl, and it made me drowsy. So I had to figure out something else. So I decided to, there must be other people didn't have it, so there must be something I was doing. But then I noticed that some people did have it, and I looked at what they were eating. They were eating a lot of dairy, and so well, let me just change and see see if there's something else I can do. And so again, I eliminated dairy, and now I no longer eat. Well, now I have a whole food plant-based diet primarily. And in Atlanta, I can see my windscreen yellow with pollen, and I can inhale, and I'm not sneezing and snorting and just having all the allergy problems I used to have. So it really does make a big difference, changing your eating habits and the health problems that you have. I can testify personally, and then of course now with my patients, I advise them to adopt a whole food plant-based diet. And of course, not everybody does it, and people don't do it perfectly, but those who make the attempt to do it actually do very, very well. And I think that my patients who make that effort to change their eating habits, they see good results, and then they're more likely to continue to if you eliminate dairy and you see, well, if I eliminate dairy and I'm so much better, maybe I should also give up the chicken and maybe the fish, and then it moves, it snowballs, and people do very, very well. I have amazing stories of people who have reversed their diabetes, reversed hypertension, reversed. I have before and after people who've had electrocardiograms, see much better. Just really healthier people. And before and after cardiac caths, and you see the arteries clear. So decreasing calcium scores, just really healthier, just much healthier. And again, it's our focus is not just weight loss, although that's a bonus. The focus is on getting healthier.
So can you talk about, it's a simple question, but defining what a plant-based diet is?
A plant-based diet? Oh, good. So, so basically it means that plants, based is foundation, and so it means that whole, unprocessed plants, whole food plant-based diet, that whole unprocessed diets are the foundation of a healthy diet. That's really all it means. And to many people, they hear that and they go, oh, vegan. No, we're not really promoting veganism. Because veganism, we're not anti-vegan, by the way, but we're not promoting veganism necessarily. Veganism is the belief that humans should not harm animals for any reason, right? And most people are not, even though are not vegans. So just because you don't eat meat for 2 days or a week, or that does not make you a vegan, right? Veganism is a belief system. So you have a lot of people who are vegan this week, or not this again. So they don't really understand what veganism is. So we don't actually use that term in our clinic, although though you could classify the diet, because in general, if you go to a restaurant and they go like, "What do you want?" and you say, "Oh, well, all right, just give me the vegan option," right? So it's easier just to, because people understand that. But from a scientific perspective, that's not the word, that's not the term that we use in the clinic, because we focus on the science of it. And it's also, plant-based is actually more quantifiable. If you say you're eating a vegan diet, you go like, so what does that mean? Sometimes it means a lot of oil and salt and fried foods, and there's a lot of Oreos are vegan, right? So there are people who are back a container of Oreos, and I'm a vegan diet. I'm on a vegan diet. So sugar and all those things. So we're really wanting you to be on a whole food plant-based diet, where you're eating whole unprocessed foods and mostly plants. That's what we promote. And again, it's a better term because it's quantifiable. Because if you say I'm eating, well, you have like 3 meals a day. And if you say out of those 3 meals, I'm eating mostly plants, plant-based foods, out of 2, you can say, well, 2/3 of your diet. You can quantify it of your diet, of the different meals. So you can say what percentage of it, like 90%, 80%. So it's a little bit more scientific in that respect, because you know what people are talking about, and then you can judge, and you could figure out, well, what impact is that having on health. So I prefer that term to terms like vegan and vegetarian, because vegetarian is again people don't really know what it means. Vegetarian actually means that animals should not be killed for food, but they can be used for dairy and eggs and coats and and shoes and whatever. But you should not kill them for food, right? So that's what vegetarian means.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a term that most people are not aware of, and it's carnism. So carnism, we all know about vegan and vegetarian, but very few people have heard of the term carnism. Carnism is the belief that it is normal and natural and necessary to eat animals, to eat some animals, but not others. So you will eat pigs and chickens, but you don't eat cats and dogs, although some other people do. And when other cultures do, you go, oh my God, that's so disgusting. But is it really more disgusting to eat, a pig, which has the intelligence of a 3-year-old child, as opposed to eating a dog? Pigs are smarter than dogs. So we have all sorts of belief systems around our food. And so I try not to get into those things so much, and to focus on the science of what it is we're doing, because that to me makes the most sense. Because if somebody doesn't believe that that they should not eat, because again, most people are carnivorous. You believe that you should be eating. We're not carnivores. You hear people say, oh, I'm a carnivore. No, you're not. If you cannot jump on a cow and with your club, with your teeth and your nails, if you can't bring it down, you're not a carnivore, right? You are not. You may think you are, but you don't have the physiology or the anatomy to be a carnivore, but you have the belief system that you should be doing these things. So you are a carnist. That's what most people are. And so most people are not. It doesn't kind of make sense that you shouldn't be eating animals, because we have this belief that it's healthy and it's good for you. So that's why I try not to get into belief systems like vegan and vegetarian. We use more of that whole food plant-based diet term, because it says exactly what we want you to eat. Whole, unprocessed plant foods should be the foundation of your diet.
So you kind of mentioned earlier, talking about some conditions that are able to be essentially reversed based upon eating the plant-based diet. How does that happen?
How does it happen? Well, for some people with difficulty, with others with ease. But it's really changing how you eat. And so going with the science, I think you had asked me earlier about high blood pressure, right? So anything and there's anything that causes your arteries to narrow will cause high blood pressure, right? So whether it's stress, whether it's clogging of the arteries, so there is a disease that underlies heart attacks and strokes and Alzheimer's disease. It's atherosclerosis, and the common name for it is clogged arteries. So we actually can unclog our arteries by changing our eating habits. If you think of an artery, think of high blood pressure, for instance, and think of your artery as a hose, and you turn on the tap and squeeze it, what happens? The pressure goes up, right? And so by unclogging your arteries, you unsqueeze it, and the pressure goes down. So we have seen lots of patients who were able to come off blood pressure medications because they unclog their arteries, right? And so unclogging your arteries with your diet will reverse heart disease. When you start eating a healthier diet, you get the beta cells of the pancreas to function better, and your beta cells produce more insulin, and you then can reverse diabetes. So, and heart disease is the same thing. If you're unclogging your arteries, it's cardiovascular disease. You're doing that, then you're reversing. You can reverse heart disease and diabetes, and most of the chronic illnesses that we have are related to what we're putting into our mouths, and also stress, right? So with hypertension, there's a big stress component. I have patients who are on plant-based diets, but they're so stressed out about their blood pressure. The stress about their blood pressure raises their blood pressure. So trying to get them to do more meditation and just mindfulness and understanding, just basically awareness about stress and managing it better. And sleeping, getting better sleep, just getting a healthier lifestyle and physical activity. These things will improve and reverse the high blood pressure. So it's diet, but it's also other lifestyle factors.
Now, as we both know, medicine isn't cookie cutter, but in your practice, how have you seen how long it takes to reverse some of these conditions, such as high blood pressure, coronary artery disease, diabetes? Does it take a couple of months, a couple of years of being on the plant-based diet to see those changes that you mentioned?
That's a great question. So we thought initially, because until, I would say 1990 or so, doctors didn't actually think we could reverse heart disease. We didn't think we could reverse atherosclerosis. The advice was really to tell people when you have that, just kind of prepare to die. Just go home, take your medications, don't do very much because you can have a heart attack or a stroke. And then we had some interesting studies with Gene Ornish, Caldwell Esselstyn, and other doctors who showed that you could reverse the clogging of your arteries. But in the initial studies were done over the course of a year. We thought it took with Caldwell Esselstyn, some of the famous image that he has of reversing cardiovascular disease. We actually see a clogged artery and an unclogged artery. That was, I think, 32 months. So we thought, well, it must be years, as you said. But there's a cardiologist in Houston, Dr. Baxter Montgomery. He has a wonderful image of unclogged arteries in 5 months, right? So, and there are other doctors now that have done it in 6 weeks. So you can begin to see healing, because what happens is that on your arteries you have abscesses. So when we say plaque, before I went to medical school, before I understood all of these things, I thought plaque was just like patches of fat, plaque on your arteries. But actually what it is, they're abscesses, right? They're fatty abscesses on the arteries. And they will begin to, just like you have an acne pimple, you have acne on your skin, and you start changing your eating habits, and you see, and it'll, within weeks, it'll improve. and it's just a healing of the abscesses on your arteries. So that can take, that can take 3 weeks. It can take, because you start to see, now your arteries may never go back to normal, depending on how long you've had atherosclerosis. It may never go back to normal because you can have scarring. It may depending if it's not, if it's relatively mild plaque and it's not been there for very long, it could heal completely and you can have more, go back to the same elasticity you had in your arteries. But if it's been there a long time and there's a lot of scar tissue, the arteries will heal, but never without this, but with scar tissue. So it's in everybody's best interest, if you're interested in unplugging your arteries and reversing disease, to start as soon as possible, because you want your arteries to go back to normal, and the longer you have atherosclerosis, the less likely you are to heal completely without scars.
So those arteries aren't going to snap back to like when you were a teenager. They may go back to maybe like 10 or 15 years, but they won't go that far back.
Well, it depends. It depends on how much plaque you have. It depends on, if you've been eating a horrible diet since from the time you were 10, because they can see plaque in the arteries of actually even younger kids. But from age 10, you begin to see plaque in the arteries. You begin to see atherosclerosis. So if you're like in your 50s or 60s, it may not snap back. But if you're in your 30s, 40s, you may have a chance of getting it back to snapping back to normal, to more elastic, because you want your arteries to be elastic, to be able to open, to expand and contract with blood flow. So it depends on how severe you had atherosclerosis, whether or not they go back to completely normal, right? And when I say normal, I'm thinking usually because we see atherosclerosis in kids age 10, right? So we're thinking that it's even 10-year-olds, have atherosclerosis. So we really have to give our kids better advice, and our population better advice. And sometimes,
so when people come to see you, go ahead.
No. You're asking when people come to see me. No, I was talking about reversing
well,
atherosclerosis.
Mm-hmm. So I was going to say, when people come to see you, since we're kind of talking about diet stuff, what kind of unhealthy eating habits do they already have when they come to see you? Eating a lot of fast food, salty foods, carbs? What do you see as the typical problems when people come to you?
Well, it's actually, we have this notion that atherosclerosis and these things are caused by fast food, and fast foods are not good, but atherosclerosis was seen in the arteries of mummies and of people, of hunter-gatherers. We have this notion that the paleo diet, and if you're eating like your ancestors and all that stuff, you are healthy. So hunter-gatherers in the Aleutian Islands, they did a study of 4,000-year-old mummies, and they did CT scans to look at their arteries. And it is a very ancient disease, and it comes from eating animal products. It comes from the cholesterol, which changes its structure in animal products. So hunter-gatherers, we don't know what they were gathering, but we know they were eating a lot of meat if they were hunting, right? So the cholesterol, and it's not the cholesterol, it's this when you cook cholesterol or exposed to air and oxygen, it changes its structure and it attacks the lining of your arteries. And it's not that, and anything that attacks your body mounts an immune response to it. So the immune response is what causes the plaque and the abscesses on your arteries. So the question you asked, what are people eating? People could be eating what they consider to be a healthy diet, with fish and chicken, baking chicken and taking the skin off. They could be eating a fast food diet too, which is not good, but they could be eating what they consider to be healthy diets, with eating baking chicken instead of frying, and taking the skin off, and fish, and the foods that they consider to be healthy foods. But if it contains cholesterol and it's cooked, because cholesterol is in the cell membrane of every cell. So just taking the fat off, or again, the things they tell us, just eat baking and don't fry. Frying is not good. Frying increases the cholesterol oxidation products, but just any type of cooked animal product will expose your arteries to cholesterol oxidation products. There are several different terms for it. Oxysterols is one, but I think it sort of hides the fact that you're talking about cholesterol oxides. Cholesterol becomes oxidized. It means it changes its structure, and when it does that, it becomes toxic, and that damages the lining of your arteries. So basically, my patients, people who are interested in lifestyle and making lifestyle changes, tend to be healthier and tend to be eating healthier diets before they come to see me, right? So many of them come because they're really in a bad way. But several people have come because they're doing everything that they've been told to do. They're eating fish and chicken. They're taking the skin off. They're limiting salt. They're doing all of the things that they've been asked to do, and they still have high blood pressure, and they still have clogged arteries, right? So it's that final step that makes it. So the people who come to see me are primarily eating meat-based diets, more or less, and cakes and cookies, and of course the eggs in when you make a cake, you take the eggs. Eggs are really high in cholesterol, and when you bake it with sugar, you oxidize the cholesterol in the eggs, and that becomes toxic, and that attacks your arteries. So it's and of course the standard American diet, people are eating bacon, eggs, and sausage and things like that. So sometimes people are eating healthy and they think, well, I'm only having a boiled egg for breakfast, and I'm eating salads, but the salad dressing, you usually have cheese and butter, and so it's a range. It's not just fast food, and this is something that I have to get across to a lot of people. It's not just the fast food. The fast food eaters know they're eating fast food and they shouldn't be doing that. But it's the people who think they're eating a healthy diet. They're the ones who we have to work on.
Okay. So let's talk about some of these quote unquote healthy diets, or some diets that you may kind of frown upon. I got a list of a couple, and I wanted to get your opinion on some of them. So I'm gonna start off with the DASH diet, and for my listeners, the DASH diet is the dietary approach to stop hypertension. Some of the information on it: about 50% of that meal is carbohydrates, 16 to 18% is proteins, and 30% is total fats. And this diet is usually rich in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and low-fat dairy products. So, Dr. Rooke, what's your opinion on the DASH diet that we, as family medicine physicians, kind of suggest patients try to help lower their blood pressure?
So the DASH diet, the original diet that the DASH diet is based on, was a plant-based diet, right? The first diet, the original study, was actually a diet with no animal products. And it was such a successful diet that they thought we should be using diet to advise patients to change their eating habits. But of course, this is America, and the doctors, the researchers said, people aren't going to do this. So let's just give them a little bit of fish, a little bit of chicken, and so that's how it got to be the DASH diet. But the original research on lowering high blood pressure, that the diet to lower high blood pressure, was a whole food plant-based diet, and they modified it to the DASH diet. So the DASH diet is better than the standard American diet, where you're living at McDonald's, and it's better than that, but it's not as good in terms of lowering your blood pressure, and it's not as, you don't see such you will see improvement, all right? Because if you're bacon, eggs, and sausage for breakfast, and fried chicken for lunch, and steak and chips for dinner, if you that's what you're eating, and you start eating more fruits and vegetables and healthier foods, you are going to see an improvement. But you will see a complete reversal of hypertension and plugging of the arteries if you eliminated the animal products in the diet. So the DASH diet is like a first step for people who are, and I understand that most doctors are, like we talked about carnists, you believe that people have to eat meat, right? That's what the researchers felt, that it was too, like the Americans, if you the paper from the DASH diet, they'll say, well, most Americans aren't going to do this. So basically, so that's why you have that DASH diet, which is sort of like a modified plant-based diet. But if you really want to make a significant difference, you will, eat more of a whole food plant-based diet. Again, but the DASH diet is a great first step. But you need to keep on moving along that journey to eliminating, to eating more fruits and vegetables altogether, eating more whole grains, and to eliminating, because adding fruits and vegetables is great because you're adding antioxidants, but you're still damaging your arteries every time you have that piece of chicken, every time you have that fish, because again, every single cell has cholesterol that becomes oxidized. Oxidized cholesterol, it damages the cells that line your arteries, and every time you eat that, you're creating chronic inflammation in your body. So that you want to eliminate that by advising people to eat a more whole food plant-based diet. And again, it's not, well, actually, I was very surprised because we had a health, they don't say health fairs anymore, so a health fair was a health promotion and disease prevention event. And we gave patients, we did some color green wraps. And one of the community members who came to the event started telling us about her church. She says in her church did a whole food plant-based diet challenge for Lent, and pretty much everyone in the church tried to do it because some did it better than others. And she says they were amazed that for 40 days they were going to do this challenge. And there's also some churches who do the Daniel fast. And while they're doing it, they've noticed that they were able to reverse their hypertension, come off medications. And so, of course, the problem with that is that they do it for 40 days, or they do it for 21 days, or they do it for a period, and then they go back to eating the foods that are unhealthy. So people can do it. And it's wonderful that that churches are we as doctors should be the one kind of taking up that mantle, right, if we can. But so taking up that mantle and saying this is how you want to do it. But at least we're now knowing that they're doing it, so you want to be supportive of them doing that. But a lot of our community are aware of plant-based diets, and a surprising number of them are doing it. When I first started doing this many years ago, I would say to a patient, I should do more of a plant-based diet. And go, what? What are you, crazy? Like, how could I not eat meat? But now, when I say that, I'm amazed at how many people would say, well, my daughter's doing that. Do you think it's healthy? Should I do it too? Or my sister or my cousin? Or they now know somebody in their first, 1 degree of separation. They now know people who are actually doing this. And so it's becoming a much more, people are becoming more aware of it. And they're aware of other people who are actually doing this. So the world is changing, and I'm so excited that churches are doing this, right? Because if you can do this with a group of people, you're more likely to be successful. And my only again, the negative part is that they're only doing it for a short period. I want them to do it for the rest of the year. But but people are so as doctors, I know. We talk a lot about we got to meet our patients where they are, because a lot of them are a lot of them are out there. They're doing plant-based diets, and if we're going to meet them where they are, we're going to have some catching up to do because they're already on plant-based diets, so they already know about it. And they're sometimes all they're really wanting is a little bit of, guidance from the doctor to say, yeah, do this, right? And it's a healthy thing to do, and they're more likely to then proceed with it if their doctors are supportive and well, and not saying, no, you need to eat fish, or you need to eat chicken, or you need to, hopefully nobody's doing that. Because if a patient comes to you and is saying, I'm doing this to be healthy, and you say, no, don't do that, that's not good. So what you want to be doing is kind of meeting them where they are and saying, yes, but this is the healthiest way to do it. Make sure you're getting lots of fresh vegetables. Make sure you're doing it in a whole food, plant-based diet way, and not eating, a lot of fried up stuff and Oreos and things like that.
So before I bring up the next diet I wanted to get your opinion on, do you think we as Americans are hooked on meat? Like, is it a drug for us? Do we kind of get a little high with a meaty rich diet?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's every ad you see on TV for whether it's Harvey's and where we've got the meats, and it's about fried chicken, and they have you cook the close up of it, and you see all the juice running out of it, and so yeah, it's advertised to us, right? And it's advertised with catchy jingles, and it's and the images make your mouth water. So yeah, Americans are hooked on this, but a surprising number of Americans are wising up. There is there's an interesting video I saw recently about diet as genocide, and I think that was there's several of them now where people are beginning to become aware of the impact of food on the African American community. And the fact that, we have the highest rates of diabetes and heart disease and those things, and it's related to what we're eating. And we're eating these things because they're being pushed on us, right? They're being advertised to us. If you go, we live in, quote unquote, not really food deserts, we live in food swamps, because that's where all the fast food is. That's where all the fried chicken and all those things are. And people are beginning to realize that, maybe... Now, I am not a conspiracy theorist, and and actually the word conspiracy theorist is, I'm learning that is probably not a bad thing to be, so a lot of what you see in our neighborhood may not be there by accident. So people are beginning to become just more aware of this, and saying, well, I'm not going to eat that. I'm going to eat the healthy stuff. I'm going to make those healthier choices because you may not value my life, but I value my life, and I'm not going to eat that anymore. So you have an awakening, especially, and I'm excited that it's coming out of churches, right? And this food is genocide was, I believe, a sermon that that a pastor gave. And he was talking about how we're being killed by our food, and the heart disease and all of those things directly related to the food we're eating, and it's what we're putting into our mouths. So we have to become aware of this, and we're the only ones. You control what goes into your body. You control what goes into your mind. Yes, you cannot control the images on TV. You cannot control, what's in your neighborhood, but you can control what you choose to put into your mouth. And that's increasingly what people are becoming aware of, and they're making those changes. There's an interesting video I saw recently called The Invisible Vegan. Again, we're not promoting veganism, but it's called The Invisible Vegan, and it's about the number of African Americans who are beginning to realize that, and who are changing their eating habits and realizing that they're a whole lot healthier, and wondering why are they the target of these ads? Why, if you look in some of these unhealthy food ads, you see African Americans, right? All the Kentucky ads, all those things there, you tend to see African Americans. So why? You begin to become just aware of these things. And once we become aware, because again, the first step towards any kind of change is awareness. And so when you become aware, then you begin to start becoming aware of what's your surroundings, and you begin to be your responses to it and how you do things, and then you start to make changes. It may be slow, but you start to do it. And it's, again, to me, it's real. I'm saying this over and over again because I'm so excited that our churches are taking on that mantle, right? Because it's how it's going to do. And I would really like to see our doctors take on that mantle too, because once our churches do it, if they have the support from the doctors, we're more likely to see healthier communities, because we know how to do this. And it's not a surprise. It's not any kind of mystery. I mean, Seventh-day Adventists, I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist, but Seventh-day Adventists in the United States are African American Seventh-day Adventists do not have the same rates of diabetes as African Americans in the general population. So there's the Adventist 1 and Adventist 2 studies. So, and Seventh-day Adventists, they have this belief system that it's one of the tenets of their religion, I believe, that eating meat is unhealthy. So they're a great group to study. So there are several studies on them where they look at what they're eating. And so within Seventh-day Adventists, they're all different. They're all different social groups, and they're all different socioeconomic statuses, and they're different races, ethnic groups, but it's just the religion. And so some of them are strict, plant-based, and the others, some of them are doing whatever they want. So they're a great group to study. And when you compare the African Americans who are eating a plant-based diet, African American Seventh-day Adventists who are eating a plant-based diet, there's no disparity. There's no higher rates of diabetes or heart disease or hypertension or any of the things we associate with African Americans in the general population having higher rates of disease, right? So you see that it's clear. So we actually know how to eliminate these health disparities, but we're not doing it, right? But I think we're not doing it as a group, but I think when individuals begin to see this, when people begin to realize, I can reverse my diabetes, and I won't need to spend all this money on medications, and I won't have with diabetes, I don't have the risk of becoming blind, I don't have all of these problems, then I'm going to do it. And that's what I see in my clinic. I see people who are willing to make those changes. And again, not everybody who comes does it, but those who do, amazing results.
I totally agree, Dr. Rooke. I encourage people to start paying attention to their surroundings as far as where they live and what restaurants and fast food is in that area, and also paying attention when you go into other communities. Like, I know when I'm around more affluent communities, I don't see as many fast food places. I don't see churches in an affluent neighborhood. I don't see Popeyes in those neighborhoods. It's other kind of quote-unquote healthier places and restaurants for those people to go to. Even when I've lived in other areas where there haven't been as much healthy food options, I could even tell a difference when I went into the grocery store, just going into Walmart, that the fruit and vegetables weren't as fresh or as plenty in those areas.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And where they're located in the store, all of those things influence what you buy, and where all the candy is, and all of these things are there to influence. And in African American neighborhoods, you see them. You see the differences when you go to more affluent Whole Foods and places like that, and there are healthier options in those stores. So yeah, absolutely. And I think that as we become more aware of these things, then when you do better, when you know better, you tend to do better. So yeah.
All right. So I wanted to get your opinion on the popular keto diet. The idea is for you to get more calories from protein and fat and less from carbohydrates. I know a lot of my patients have done this, and a lot of my friends have done this as a quick weight loss measure with the keto diet. What's your opinion of the keto diet?
So it is a quick weight loss measure, but it's a way to also quickly get kidney disease, heart disease, increase your cholesterol levels. It's a quick way to get sick, right? Over time, very slow. Well, again, it will give you weight loss. There's no question about that. But what they've looked at with the keto diet is that you're eating less. I mean, there's just so much fat you could eat, right? There's just so much bacon. There's just all this the stuff that there's less. You're eating less, but so you're going to lose weight. But as soon as you come off the keto diet, as soon as you start eating any type of fruits, vegetables, the things that your body's craving, because that's where your body's getting nutrients from, you gain the weight back because you have not really learned to eat a healthy diet. So I absolutely advise everybody to stop, to do not do the keto diet. Unfortunately, the keto diet, a lot of people who are promoting the keto diet are doing it with intermittent fasting. So I definitely support intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is the way sort of Mother Nature sort of designed us to eat. So if you eat breakfast, you shouldn't really be snacking all day, snacking all night. So intermittent fasting is a good is a good practice to avoid snacks, but you should not be doing it with the keto diet. You should be doing the whole food plant-based diet. The keto diet is the way to dialysis. That's what I think. Because the more protein and fat you eat, the more your kidneys, the heavier the load on your kidneys, and the more likely you are to develop renal failure. So that's what I see from my patients who go on. That's one of the most dramatic parts of seeing people who go on a keto diet, is that you see a decrease in the glomerular filtration rate. So you should look at that when you're looking at your patients, those who are going on keto diets. Yeah, they're going to lose weight, but their kidney function will decrease, their cholesterol levels will increase, and kidney functions will decrease. Sorry, kidney functions decrease, cholesterol levels. They're more likely to get higher hemoglobin A1Cs. So although it's being touted as a diet for diabetes, over time you're killing the beta cells, because with diabetes we think a lot of insulin resistance, but in fact a lot of people have insulin resistance and they don't have diabetes. With diabetes, we now know that when you have pre-diabetes, you've lost about 30 to 40% of the beta cell mass. When you have full-blown diabetes, you have the diagnosis, you've lost about 50 to 60% of the beta cell mass. So what's killing the beta cells, right? And you know that most of your patients, you start on one medication, you go to 2 medications, and then next thing, within no time, they're on insulin, and they're on another dose of insulin, and they're on insulin, and then they need metformin on top of the insulin, because their beta cells are progressively dying, right? So how do you protect the beta cells? That should be the focus now of treatment for diabetes. Protecting the beta cells, because protecting beta cell loss. And you do that by feeding the antioxidants, fruits and vegetables, and decreasing the attack on the beta cells from reactive oxygen, cholesterol oxidation products. That's actually my research. But so that's why. So I'm looking at 2 groups. One with more of a plant-based, the ADA plant-based diet, but plant-based, and the other one completely plant-based with no cholesterol oxides, no oxysterols, and to see what difference it has on the beta cell function. Beta cell function will improve and so there's this notion that when you have diabetes, you shouldn't eat fruit, you shouldn't eat, you should eat more meat, and that is like the worst thing you can do for diabetes. And telling people not to eat fruit decreases the amount of antioxidants that the beta cells are getting. So you have to protect your beta cells when you have diabetes, so that they don't continue to die, and they actually regenerate, and you can reverse the diabetes. So keto diets are a way to, end up on dialysis, end up, on insulin, end up on those. Although you may be skinny and losing weight, you're not actually getting healthier.
So thumbs down on the keto diet from Dr. Rooke. Thumbs down on that. So I'm sure someone listening, you kind of encouraged them on wanting to start a plant-based diet. They don't want to be on any medications. They don't want to be a diabetic, or they already have high blood pressure and they have diabetes, but they want to get off some of their medication. What advice would you give them in starting a plant-based diet?
Well, do it the way that you think is best for you. So there are two schools of thought about how to make changes. You either jump right in or you do it gradually. It depends on your personality, how you do it. But in general, the research shows that if you're going to make a change, just make it, right? So this notion that you're gonna just do a little bit, because as the sun rises, you're gonna mess up, right? You're gonna relapse. You're gonna have a problem. So you can be the best person on plant-based diet, but there's gonna become a day when you go to a party and there's nothing else to eat, and there's a piece of fried chicken or whatever it is that you say you swore to never have. So, and then you're right back to square one if that's the only thing you gave up. So the best way to start a diet, to transition to a plant-based diet, is to actually try to do as much of it as you can in a given time. So I advise my patients to start, if they're, again, a lot of them have been trying to do it when they come, but if you are totally new to this, start with breakfast. And I always advise people to get fruit for breakfast because you're getting the antioxidants, you're getting glucose for your brain. So start with breakfast, start eating whole, unprocessed, not juices, not all of these highly processed foods. Start eating fruit for breakfast. And then once you get breakfast under control and you realize that if you eat fruit, you're not going to starve to death. And it's not. You've been all our lives. We've been Fruit Loops and cereals and all these things have been advertised to us. But if you start eating what Mother Nature gave you to eat, you start eating fruit for breakfast, you're likely to realize how delicious it is, and then it's how filling, and you're likely to sustain it because it's easy to do, right? There's no cooking, there's no nothing, or something. And then you start doing lunches. So you do. I like the idea of the Buddha bowl. So you put in some grains or a grain bowl, so you're getting a variety of foods, and so it's filling, and you get some salad in there, you get some grains, you get some mushrooms, you get some whatever foods that you like. You put that into your little Buddha bowl for lunch, or a nice salad, and so you have that for lunches, and then for dinners you start getting more bean stews and potatoes if you like potatoes, or rice. More, I have a little book, a little handbook with lovely pictures of what you should be eating. So more bean stews, and then you can also have that for leftovers. The idea is to make it easy because people are not going to go out and cooking all these foods. If you can use some of your leftovers, bean stews for lunches, and then you could eat. Make it as easy as you can because you're more likely to sustain it if it's easy to do. So it'll take you about, if you started with breakfast and then lunches and then dinners, it'll take you about a week or two to sort of jump in to be doing that at least one day a week. And then you go to 2 days a week, and then you go to 3 days a week. But the goal is to be progressing pretty fast. If you're going to do it that way, then progress. Because the faster you get to doing the whole food plant-based diet most of the time, the better you will feel. And when you start to feel better, that is really what sustains you doing it. And then you will begin to realize that the day that you have that piece of chicken or whatever it is that you shouldn't have, it's not that you shouldn't have it, it's because you don't feel good after you have it, right? You begin to see the difference when you have that because now they're delicious non-dairy ice creams. There's a lot of sugar in it, but there's a lot of delicious. I am not a big fan of a lot of substitutes, but meat substitutes and all the fake meat and the Beyond Meat and all those things, except for the rare occasion when you're out and that's all there is, then you have that. But it's better than eating the regular meat. But basically, you want whole, unprocessed foods as much as possible. So when you start doing a plant-based diet, you begin to feel lighter, you begin to feel healthier, and that is really what sustains you. because when you go back to eating on healthy diet, when you slip up, because as the day is long, you are going to slip up. Just know that you're going to slip up, and if you do, just get back up. That's one meal, and then the next meal you're back to eating a healthy diet, right? And you just and don't beat yourself up if you're not perfect. You're not going to be perfect, right? You're not, because it's life. But if 80% of your meals, and most of the time 100%, but then you have a week where it's 80%, it's better than 0% or only like 10%. So if you're moving in that direction, that is what's important, right? So that is my advice to my patients, is to just get started. Start with breakfast, lunches, dinners, and try to stay away from snacks as much as possible, especially if you're trying to lose weight. And if you snack, have a piece of fruit or something that is whole, unprocessed. But for the most part, have your fruit for breakfast, or just make the fruit so that you're getting at least the number of servings. So you're getting potassium. Fruit is, if you have high blood pressure, fruits are high, or most fruits are high in potassium. Potassium lowers your blood pressure. So we hear about salt. So, but the equivalent of a teaspoon will raise the top number by 3 milligrams of mercury. The equivalent of potassium will decrease the top number by 6 milligrams of mercury. So it's far more important to eat fruits and vegetables and potassium-containing foods than it is just to limit salt. Limiting salt is important. Now, mind you, I don't want you also to be pouring, lots of salt. But the place that you get most of the salt is actually processed meats, right? The bacon and the sausage, and that's where you're getting the salt. It's the processed foods. If you eliminate those things, you're eliminating 75% of the salt in your diet. And people think, well, I'm not eating any salt. I'm not eating. Why do I still have high blood pressure? If you're eating chicken, they inject the chicken with salt. If you read the fine print on most chickens, you can actually go online to see plumping chickens. They actually inject salt water into chickens. So you say, well, I never put salt on my food. But if you're eating chicken, you're eating a ton of salt because it's injected into the chicken to plump it up and to fatten it up and to make it look nice in the supermarket. So if you eliminate those foods, you're automatically eliminating a lot of the sodium. And once you start eating more fruits and vegetables, you're getting that higher potassium level that's going to lower your blood pressure. So eating a whole food plant-based diet is the healthiest thing you can do on every level, right? And again, the question about how do you start? Just start. Any meal, tonight, instead of, eat more salad, eat more vegetables, and then eat less chicken, and gradually start doing it. And again, we have a handbook, but you don't need my handbook. There's several websites. Forks Over Knives is an excellent one. I send my patients there.
What's it called
Forks
again?
Over Knives. Forks Over Knives. Forks. Forks Over Knives. I think it meant like eating over surgery, eating over cutting. So Forks Over Knives is one website. There are several. Again, when I first started this, there were like 2 websites or 3. Now you put in whole food plant-based and you get hundreds of websites, and and no oil. So you put that in, and how many recipes it's amazing now. I am just so impressed with, and the number of people who are doing this, and to me, it's becoming a whole movement. And that is what I would like to see. And I'd like to see us, African Americans leading, that movement, so that we're getting healthier. Because I'm so tired of hearing, we have the most hypertension, we have the most diabetes. I'm tired. I want to see us, African Americans have the lowest. That's the progression I want to see. And the way to do it is by changing what we eat, right? So, and of course, managing stress and those things. But the focus has to be on what we're putting into our mouths. So yeah, Forks Over Knives is a great website, and that usually will lead you. If you just go in, Google whole food, plant-based diets, no oil, and you will be amazed by the number of websites that will come up. And then you can choose what you like, what you want to read. But make sure, you're not going for all the supplements and all the things that you don't really need. The only supplement I recommend is B12. Now, if you have an iron deficiency, it's not a supplement, you're being treated. So, but most people don't develop iron deficiency. You don't develop the B12. I advise my patients to do it as a precaution, because that is a possibility that you could have low B12 levels. So, especially if you've got diabetes and you're taking metformin blocks B12 absorption. So you want to be sure you're taking a B12 supplement. That's the only supplement that I recommend that people take religiously, right? If you're on a plant-based diet. So aside from that, you're going to get all of your nutrients, you'll get all of your protein, you'll get every single thing that you need, and none of the toxic stuff that you don't need in a whole food plant-based diet.
Okay. That sounds real good. I appreciate you, Dr. Rooke, for sharing all great information on a plant-based diet. I always like to end my podcast interviews with something called Randy's Random Questions. So I'm going to ask you one random question. Are you ready?
Well, hopefully I can answer it.
Oh, I think you can answer. If you had to eat one plant-based diet for the rest of your life, what would that be? What meal, what would you put on the plate? One plate, you can put whatever you want, the contents. What would you do? You could only eat this for the rest of your life.
Oh, well, that's easy. I would do like a Buddha bowl, right? So the plant-based meal I like is the Buddha bowl. And again, you start with a nice with greens. You start with greens, and then you add some quinoa or rice, and then you add, so I like mushrooms. Mushrooms increase the nutrient content of everything, because when we do the nutrition content on the computer, it boosts everything. So I would do some sauteed mushrooms, sauteed in water, or vegetable broth, not oil. And I would add oil-free salad dressing. What did I leave? I like I've recently found plantain bowls, so I like plantains. So you add some not fried plantains, baked plantains onto the top of it, and all of you put in all of the food groups into your little bowl, and then you cover it with a nice salad dressing, or oil-free, and that has been my favorite lunches and dinners. and I eat that a lot. So I tend to like, and then it's easy to prepare, because if you do things in advance, if you boil a pot of rice, or a pot of quinoa, or a pot of grains, so then you have every day, you just take half a cup out, and you get it, so it's already pre-prepared. If you have your salads, you have salad greens washed already, you just take a handful of that in there. If you have things pre-prepared, you just add to it, and you're good to go. It's an easy meal, but it does take a little bit of advanced preparation. But so if you do that once a week, then for the rest of the week, you're just adding healthy food to your little bowl. So that's what I also like soup. But you asked me just one meal, so yeah, I would just do a Buddha bowl. I like the Buddha bowl concept of, right, the Buddha bowl. I like soup too, but the idea of doing that, the one meal would be that Buddha bowl of different foods that I would. That's what I would do. I hope that was not like a cheat answer. Was that the answer to the question? Was I, because it wasn't one
yes,
food.
Yes, you answered that great.
Okay.
So you did well. So we'll light you off the hot seat. Thanks for answering Randy's random question. I appreciate all the good information that you gave on this podcast, and hopefully we can have you on in the future to talk more about the research that you've done currently and in the past, and just the benefits of the plant-based diet.
Oh yes, I'll be happy to come back and talk about my research. As soon as my study is finished, I'll be, begging people to come and talk. So yes, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was great. Thanks.